Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is the third video of the Read with Atharva series where we pick up technical articles, try to make sense of it, and I try to explain it to you in a better way. The aim of this series is to get you in the habit of reading technical articles so that the next time you see an interesting technical article, you don't hesitate to give it a read. So today we are going to look at this article. It's called as Secure Statically Rendered Paid Content in Next.js with the App Router. So this article is primarily focused towards security, which usually YouTube videos skip. So yeah, even I am very guilty of that. So yeah, this article mainly focuses on how you can securely store your stuff behind a paywall. So like they have an example of creating a blog website and they have an article which is behind a paywall and how you could make sure that things are secure and there is no unauthorized access to your paid content. So yeah, let's get started. I have read this article before and I find it very interesting. So yeah, when talking about advanced architectural patterns, it's super important to have real life use case in mind. Let's imagine you are a developer running a developer blog and you have spent an incredible amount of time writing your latest piece. Remix beats Next.js, or does it? I don't want to get into it. So a blog post so good that people will pay for reading it. It's so good, so original, so controversial that it would be shame to share it for free. This brilliant piece of content truly deserves is a paywall. Let's learn how it can be implemented in Next.js. We will discover a wrong way to check authentication and payment using layouts, a correct but suboptimal way using dynamic check, a better way compatible with static rendering, a front check in a proxy server. So it already gives you an idea. Like first of all, we are going to use the wrong way, which is using a layout. The second, we are using a dynamic check. It works, but it's not like the best one. And the third one, according to the author, is the best one. A better way compatible with static rendering. So if you like want to have just like static rendering, this is the best way, like a front check in a proxy server. All right. We won't cover the authentication and payment verification logic per se, but rather how to use this logic efficiently. In this article, I suppose that you store the list of paid users in a database or that you are using a third-party service like Stripe. So yeah, this article focuses more on Next.js and not really on the payment side of things. So yeah, if you want to read about authentication in Next.js app router, you can check Lee Robinson's video on the topic. I will leave that in the descriptions. And also I'll leave this specific article also in the description if you want to have a look without me speaking about it. So yeah, let's start with the first approach, the one that is super tempting but doesn't actually work. The bad way, authentication in the layout. In Express, you can protect all your routes of an application with a single line of code. So if you aren't familiar with Express, how Express works, you can use app.use to create a middleware. So they have created a middleware here and are checking if the user has paid or not. And if the user hasn't paid, we are just redirecting the user to subscribe URL, or else we are just running the next thing. So either the next middleware or the next route logic. So we are creating a new route logic called as /paid article, and we are just rendering the paid article.html. And what happens is that before this code is run, the actual middleware is run each time there is a request, and you can check if the user has paid or not. So it's pretty straightforward in Express, right? Our goal is to implement the same thing, but in Next.js, it's very tempting to use a layout for authentication check. Since a layout is shared by multiple pages, that would be an efficient way to secure these pages with a single line of code in the layout, right? So if you don't already know what layouts are in Next.js app router, you can create a layout and all of the subroutes will have the same specific JSX as layout. You can even have like custom code here, but as the author says, that it's not the best way to secure paywalled content. If you want to know more about Next.js 14 and like about layout and stuff, I have made a video. It's basically a crash course on Next.js 14. So I will leave that in the description as well if you want to check it out. All right, so they have this is the app/layout.jsx file where they are using a check paid function. Then they are using the layout function which renders something. So they are saying this won't work as expected. So they're checking if has paid. This is going to be a boolean, and they're going to check. They're just going to use await check paid function, which just checks if the user has paid or not. And if the user hasn't paid, we are redirecting to /subscribe. Or else we are just rendering the underlying page. And in app/page.tsx file, we are simply getting the content and we are just rendering it on the screen. Sadly, this doesn't work as expected. So like I looked at it first when I was when I was reading the article at the first time. I thought that this is a pretty solid idea, but I didn't know all the security holes. Like it's not really a security bug, I should say. It's more like it's not supposed to be done in this way kind of thing. So yeah, let's read what's wrong with this specific idea. Sadly, this doesn't work as expected. Layouts are not equivalent to top level middlewares. There is no strict guarantee that a layout is rendered before a page, which really sounds confusing, right? Like your page cannot load before a layout, technically speaking. But as the author is saying, there is like no strict rule like there will be a layout generated before the page itself. Layouts and page do not form a middleware chain like in Express. When navigating through the application, you won't see the problem because the layout will be rendered before the page. Exactly. However, it's very easy to send a request to force the next server to provide the RSC payload for the page without running the layout first. I have created an open source reproduction of this mistake. I think this goes to GitHub, right? Let's open it. New tab. Yeah. Hack this app in one easy step. Send a GET request to this URL with RSC header set to 1. You will be able to access the paid content. We are not going to do that in this video, but I think you should do it. It's a very good way of checking things like if the author is saying the truth or not. I'm pretty sure he also has a screenshot here. He has localhost 3000 and he has set the RSC header to 1, and there's a payload. Like there doesn't need to be a layout itself. You will there is no rendering of layout, but you will directly get the RSC payload for that specific page. I recommend you to go check this out. To be completely honest, I think the author has done his homework before writing this article, which is always nice to see. Here is how we can access paid content through Insomnia, using Insomnia. I guess Insomnia is like an app. You can even use like Postman and stuff, I believe. This is the point which I was mentioning. This is not a security issue in Next.js. It was never claimed that layouts were the right place to do authentication in the first place. But since it's pretty easy to confuse layout with some kind of generic middleware, I wanted to stress out this potential mistake. Like, to be completely honest, if I didn't see this specific part and I was to make something like this, I might have just used layout, and that might have caused like all of my articles to get leaked online, and yeah, that would be messed up. Now we are looking at the second way, which is the dynamic way, checking auth where you fetch the data. We have started with an invalid approach. Now let's discover a dynamic approach that works as expected. So this will work without any security concerns. Instead of authenticating users as early as possible, we do it as late as possible, but not too late, hopefully. Yeah. The idea is to run the access check when we get the data. So here is a page. I'm assuming this is a page.tsx. Perfect. So what's happening is we are checking the paid. We are checking if the user has paid or not. Just consider this as a function. Don't take the code like this. It's just like placeholder code. It's just checking the db.has payments. It's just like you need to replace this with your own logic, right? And in the get content, we are just checking if the user has paid or not, and we are just getting the article. And what we are doing here is we are doing const rsc get content is equal to cache get content. So cache is a React function which only works on React server components, which will cache this request and it will store it in the React server. And the next time somebody makes a request to your page.tsx file, the article will not be fetched again from the database. Instead, it will be served through the cache. So yeah, great. This works as expected. Now there's a few confusing things here. I would like to explain them to you. Doing the auth check in the page would have worked too, but moving the check closer to data is way easier to read. The problem is that a dynamic authentication and payment check will imply dynamic render every time a user accesses the page. So like every time a user accesses the page, your database call will be invoked again. You can mitigate this issue by setting up a cache shared amongst users. This can be done using a third-party solutions such as Node Cache, using Next.js built-in unstable cache, with the advantage that you will also be able to use the built-in revalidation features. So if you want to use revalidation and stuff, you can use unstable cache, but there's a catch here which there is in the node, but we'll first read this. This will reduce the number of calls to your data source. However, you will still have to render the page for every request. The final approach we will discover is compatible with static rendering. But before we go to that, there is a note, a very important note. I tried to find, okay, so contrary to React cache function, the unstable cache, the nextjs function, is shared across users. So like all of the users will have access to that cache. They are not the same thing. If you put the user specific data there, be careful to use the right cache keys and not leak data. So in unstable cache, you can actually pass in keys. So if we go to the nextjs documentation, unstable cache nextjs, if you go here, I tried to do a lot of research about this because this seemed very interesting. So there is also a hold on, so it has key parts. So this is an array that identifies the cached key. It must contain globally unique values that together identify the key of the data being cached. So I don't know if I got it correctly, but I think the cache keys need to be unique here. So like if you don't pass in keys at all, and or if the cache keys are same across, like I think everyone will start seeing the paid content without even paying for it. So yeah, I think that would be a big problem. So yeah, if you put user specific data there, be sure to use right cache keys and not leak data. Yeah. Now we are going to the static way. I don't know how I should call it static, but I'll share my opinion in the end. The dynamic authentication check worked, but was suboptimal for our specific use case. Given that the paid content is same for all users, it doesn't make much sense to re-render the page for every request just because we want to read the cookies to recognize the user. Okay. It doesn't make much sense to re-render the page for every request just because we need to read cookies to recognize the user. So the dynamic things we are doing in the page is like getting the article. So to get the articles, the steps we are doing is like first check if the person is authorized to see the article or not. And how do we do that? We get the cookies and we check the authentication using authentication provider. So each time the page gets rendered. So yeah, let's make a private page totally public but still secure. Yes, it's not incompatible. 2 steps to achieve that. Remove all the auth checks from your Next.js pages and data fetching methods. Trust me on this. So like just remove all of the auth checks and data fetching stuff and check authentication using an edge middleware. Ta-da! Now this got me a little confused. Like it's still dynamic, right? Even if you put this in edge middleware and you are still checking if the user like is authenticated to access it or not before it reaches to Next.js. Of course, like your Next.js is static. I mean, a static app is being served and your user doesn't need to reload, but I don't know if this is like worth it or not. It might be. Like I think most of the time I'm saying something I make absolutely no sense, but I think if like we are talking about such a use case like just a small blog with a few paywall articles, I think this should work. But I think anything more than that, I think that I don't think I would use this. Maybe I'm just stupid, I don't know. But yeah, I think that's just my opinion. What is your opinion about that? I want to hear that, so just leave that in the comments below. So we are creating a middleware.ts file. So in the middleware, we are just checking if the session token and stuff, and if the user is authorized to, if the user is not authorized, hold on. Okay, if the user is not authorized, I forgot to read the exclamation. If the user is not authorized, we need to redirect them to the subscribe page. Or else, if the user is authorized, we can just leave it there and we can let Next.js do its thing. The paid content is stored in Next.js cache server side and only paid users can reach it. The cool thing is that now the performance is optimal for them thanks to static rendering. So whenever you build I think it will only be built once and it won't be rendered ever again. So that is the cool thing. If you are not confident with using Next.js middlewares for the authentication check, you can set up any other kind of proxy server. A custom server would also do the job. Yeah, I think let's look at this link. Custom server. By example, Next.js includes its own server with Next.start. If you have an existing backend, you can still use it with Next.js. That is not a custom server. A custom Next.js server allows you to start a server 100% programmatically in order to use a custom server patterns. Most of the time you will not need this, but it's available for complete customization. I didn't know about this, to be completely honest, and it's very fascinating to know. Yeah. Now, yeah, before deciding to use a custom server, please keep in mind that it should only be used when the integrated out of Next.js can't meet the app requirements. A custom server will remove important performance optimizations such as serverless functions and automatic static optimization. Okay. So I wonder if the static rendering will shut off. I don't know. Let's see. Take a look at the following example for a custom server. Okay. That okay. If you want, this is just like, I think this is not the scope for this article, but if you want me to cover something like this, like leave that in the comments below and I'll make sure to create a video on that. We are going back to the article. It's just way too much for this video. Yeah. The only constraint is that the server should be as fast as possible. It can stay very simple since its only role is to check authentication and payment and run a redirect if needed. Edge middlewares are built on top of the Edge runtime. A light JS runtime optimized to be distributed closer to the end users. Middlewares are fast enough. They cannot establish database connections using TCP, but they can run HTTP queries. So you can call your payment API from in there. So yeah, there are little limitations with the Edge runtime, but I think we can make it work. Like if you don't want the Edge runtime, you can use the custom server stuff. But if you still want the speed and stuff, like if you don't want to modify the custom server and stuff, I think you need to adjust with Edge middlewares. Conclusion. We have learned how to secure the access to a paid blog while keeping the content static and thus very fast to load. But this is not the only use case. This article actually is a follow-up of my previously published segmented rendering pattern. So again, this is not really in the scope of the tutorial, but if you want me to cover this entire article, let me know. Quick summary. Among all possible architectures for rendering a website, static rendering is most performant. Yet it's only applicable to public generic content. Or is it? In this article, we will push the boundaries of static rendering and learn how to apply it to personalized content. This new pattern is called segmented rendering, and we will check the Jamstack. We'll change the Jamstack game forever. Okay. Yeah. So I think this will also be a good article to cover, and I think I will also cover this one. Eric, thank you so much for this article. I'm like enjoying reading all of these, to be completely honest. Like I never thought that you could do stuff like this. Like I never thought, but like this gives me a new perspective. So yeah, segmented rendering is a way to implement static personalization using a redirection or a URL rewrite. You can reuse this trick to implement many other patterns such as A/B testing, feature flagging. It even works with patterns with less security constraints like internationalization. Okay. Now, I don't think I'm going to understand segmented rendering until I read this article before, but I think I should be creating a new video. So I think Read with Atharva video 4 is already decided at this point. So yeah, subscribe to this channel and make sure you keep an eye on the 4th video of the series next week. Or I think we will adjust here and there. Let's see. Compared to the Pages router, the app router brings layouts, but we shouldn't use them for authentication anyway. And React Server components that do not need client-side hydration, so they are more performant when it comes to displaying static text on an article. So yeah, you're like in React Server components, you're just passing HTML back to the browser, and like yeah. Thanks to segmented rendering and RSCs, we can achieve the best possible performances for a paid blog. So yeah, want to learn more about the security? Join the waitlist for my incoming course. Yeah, the article. Yep. So yeah, Eric Burrell.tech. If you guys like this article, I would go ahead and I would find the socials for this one. Yeah, I think you have the socials. Just go ahead and leave a follow on his Twitter. because I think this is a very great article. And the reason how I found this article is like I went ahead on his Twitter and I found a post and I saw the article linked, and that's how I stumbled across it, and that's how I decided I wanted to make a video on this. So yeah, that's it for this video. If you liked this video, make sure you click the like button, you hit the subscribe button, and you share this video with your friends so that they enjoy the same level of knowledge that you are enjoying right now. Also, if you have any suggestions, like if you have any articles you want me to cover in this series, or if you have like some other suggestions like creating an app, make sure you let me know. If it's a suggestion about an app or some kind of library and stuff, make sure you leave that in the comments. If it's an article, make sure you leave that in my socials and not in the comments, because if there are any links, I'm going to delete them. I don't want any links even if they are completely legit, because I don't want to promote sometimes the links can be malicious, and I just don't want them in my comment section. So yeah, that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.